Hello, friends. Welcome to my scary collaboration. This one is called Now What Was I Just Doing? You don't know it, but someone has been removed from your life. They haven't died. They haven't moved. They have simply ceased to be from present, future, and history. However, you still know they were there. You faintly recall broken memories of someone else there. Someone who should have been there, but you think you're crazy. You go to do something, but you can't remember what. It was them. They wanted to talk to you.
There's a mailbox somewhere in the city that can solve your direst problems. Which city? That depends on who you ask. There may be even more than one. Who knows? Anyway, this mailbox isn't emptied anymore. The mail service has completely forgotten about it, but it clings on. It is located in some relatively unlikely place, so you won't spot it immediately. Mail you put inside won't go anywhere, but this box is special. Write a letter about your most pressing problem to the persons in charge of dealing with it. Write to your significant other, your boss, the IRS, and get it all off your chest. Ride yourself into deep shit with that letter. You'll see that the problem will dissolve soon, in some way you hadn't thought likely. The snag, of course, is that you can't really be sure whether you have found the right mailbox until you try. And if you haven't, things are going to get much worse once your letter gets delivered.
This one is called The Code of Mirrors. The images we see in the mirror are the pure incarnates of evil. They are only allowed to exist in the area reflected in the glass. To them, life is like a never-ending hell, rotting away in the same room day after day. The only refuge from this purgatory is death, and the only way for them to die, sad to say, is for you to die. Fortunately, they are bound by a code. You are their master, and they must mirror your every movement and expression. To do otherwise would break an unbreakable law, unraveling the space-time continuum. However, there is a loophole, and it can only be triggered by you, the master. To force them into error is to free them from their contract. After you let them out of your view, you're on your own. Know this: when you watch them, they're watching you back. They're watching, and they're thinking.
Look behind you. What do you see? Invariably, there will be a wall somewhere in your view. Now stare deeply into the space on the wall that lines up best with your eyes. Nothing will happen, but make sure you are clear on where this particular spot is. That spot contains all the negativity in your mind. Whenever you are on your computer, reading scary stories, or whatever you do, sometimes you will get spooked. What do you do when this happens? You check behind you. That's what you do. As you read this now, a feeling of dread will come over you. Check the spot. Nothing again, huh? That's because right now, all the evil is locked safely in your mind. Some people, upon learning of this negative spot, resolve to remove the spot in an attempt to remove the negative energy. This is a grave mistake. You must never let harm come to this spot. If you do, you will have released the energy. Now, when you sit at your computer at night, you will feel chills, even in the summertime. The feeling of dread that only presented itself when you were genuinely scared will now hang in the air constantly. Within a week, you and your loved ones will have a string of bad luck. Within a month, your computer will begin to act erratic and eventually break down. On the anniversary of the spot's destruction, you will dream your most horrible fears. The dream will seem to go on forever, and when you wake up, you will notice your vision has darkened. Every year, on the same day, the dream will repeat itself, and your vision will grow darker and darker. After you go completely blind, don't ever turn your back on that spot again. That is, if you can still tell where it is.
A mother and father decided they needed a break. Not having much alone time in the almost year since their young son Toby was born, they wanted to have a night out, dinner, maybe a movie, and the honeymoon suite at a local hotel to possibly give Toby a little brother or sister. They called their most trusted babysitter, who unfortunately was already engaged for the night. But she did refer a good friend of hers, Opal, who she swore could be trusted. They spoke with the new babysitter and agreed to have her arrive no later than 6:30 so the parents could get an early start. As the parents got ready to paint the town red, Toby lay on the floor, gnawing on his teething ring in the den off to the back of the house. At shortly around 6:20, the father walked past the open doorway and saw an elderly woman sitting in the rocking chair facing the child, her back to the doorway. The father was slightly startled as his wife hadn't mentioned the sitter had arrived. He spoke to her as he straightened his tie in the mirror on the wall opposite the doorway. "Oh my, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come in. We appreciate you coming on such short notice. My wife put some chicken in the oven for you. The numbers for the restaurant and hotel are on the counter if you need to reach us. We will be home around 9 tomorrow morning. Goodbye, Toby. I love you." He hurried down the hallway as his wife was coming down the stairs. Meeting her at the bottom, his wife asked, "What were you saying, dear?" "Oh, nothing. I was just giving the sitter instructions. Now we should hurry so we can make our reservation on time," he replied, grabbing his coat as he unlocked the front door. They went to the car and were in such a rush they didn't notice the car pulled up the driveway not 15 seconds after they pulled out. They proceeded to have the best night out they could remember. The wife becomes somewhat concerned shortly after arriving at the hotel when she called home and no one answered. The husband calmed her as he pulled her into bed, kissing her neck. "Don't worry, dear. She's an older lady, and it's almost 10. She must have gone to bed after putting Toby down." The next morning, after a nice breakfast, they arrived home to find a note on the door. It read, "I arrived at 6:30, as agreed, but no one was home. If you had made other plans, I would have appreciated if someone had called me. Opal." The husband gave his wife a confused look as she put a hand to her mouth and her face turned white. She threw open the front door, calling out for her son. There was no reply. In fact, there was no sound at all in the house, just the smell of some burned meat. She ran up the stairs as her husband raced to the back of the house to find the kitchen filled with smoke. He turned off the stove and used spot holders to grab the smoldering pan of charred meat and drop it in the sink. His wife came into the kitchen crying into her hands. "He's not here. Toby's gone. She took him." The husband then took her in his arms as she cried. It was then that he noticed blood on the lid of the trash can. A pit formed in his stomach as he left his wife and opened the trash can. He exhaled as he realized that it was only the chicken his wife had made. Then that his eyes shut wide open as his wife let out a fresh scream of horror. As he turned toward her, he caught sight of the melted remains of the teething ring on the bottom of the open oven.
Rumor has it that every Halloween during the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., there exists a void. You must stand in front of a mirror in a pitch-black room with your gaze fixated on the mirror. If you remain in the room when the moment arrives, you will feel a chill seize your body. Place your right hand on the mirror and whisper, "I accept." If done correctly, in the mirror, there will be a faint image of an infant with no flesh and pitch-black eyes. He will stare directly into your soul, and you will hear the buzzing of flies and nervous whispering. You will not be able to make out the image in the mirror, but you will be filled with unspeakable terror. The infant will ask you 5 questions about events that have occurred within your life. His voice will sound like the rubbing of sandpaper and will be devoid of all human emotion. For each question that you answer incorrectly, one of your 5 senses will be consumed and lost to you forever. For each question that is answered correctly, you will be able to recite the name of someone you know. That person will be found dead the next morning with their flesh removed and their eyes missing.